Hey, community group leaders, happy February 2016 to you. This is our February e-training video. And what I want to talk about today with you is multiplication of community group leaders as well as community groups. When I looked back in my files, what I realized was that we haven't talked about this for about 3 years. It was February and March of 2013 that we talked about multiplication. And so I think it's a really important topic for us to address right now, especially for some of you, you're brand new leaders, and for the rest of us, it's just a good reminder. And so I'm going to be walking you through some documents that you can find on our website. Before I do that, I want to encourage you with a couple things. Number one, on this email, you saw that you have a February accountability form to complete. I've changed the formatting of that a little bit, so it should be easier for you to use. Please have that completed by the end of this month in February. Second thing that I want to do is on February 15th and 16th, that's a Monday and Tuesday, we are kicking off our GX Network meeting. And so this is something that Pastor Rob and Vintage has launched this year. And we're bringing in all of our GX partners. And so that is Jonathan and Amanda Griffin in San Antonio with The Well. That is Matt and Kiva O'Mealy in Des Moines, Iowa with Vertical Church. That's Rob and Riley Russell with Restoration Church in New York City. Also Ryan and Shanae Rice in Algiers with Life Church. And even Josh and Sarah as they plan and prepare to plant in Denver. And here's what I want to encourage you to do as a group, and to encourage your community group to do this, is maybe take some time before the 15th and 16th to write some encouraging letters, maybe a card to these people, just to encourage them, to let them know that you're praying for them as they plant and work in these areas that God has called them to. So if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to contact me, but we want to encourage you to encourage them. And that's the February 15th and the 16th. The other thing that I want to encourage you and your community group in, which is kind of connected to gospel, to multiplication of leaders and groups, is to really be challenged by yourself and to challenge your community group to be the primary promoters and primary inviters to your community group. As a staff member, as a pastor of Vintage, and the rest of the pastors and the staff, we are always going to be encouraging and challenging and pointing people to community groups. And oftentimes, if we get a name or a phone number or a contact, I'm going to do my best to point them to a community group, whether that's face-to-face or via email or a phone call. But nothing is more powerful than a personal invite. And so what I want to encourage you guys to do, to encourage you and your groups to do, is to be regular at our gatherings. Not just to be regular at our gatherings, but to show up and be there 15 minutes early or stay 15 minutes late, to be able to connect with and reach new faces. Introduce yourself, invite them to your community group. Because here's what I can promise you: when you and the people in your group regularly promote your community group, I can promise you that it's going to grow. I can promise you that when people meet you and they have a face with a name, they are going to want to connect with your group. It might take several weeks or several months, but it's going to happen. And so we want to see our groups grow. We recognize that as a church, we need more people in community groups, and we need more people as they come to faith to be a part of Christian community. And so we want your groups to grow. We want people to connect into the groups because we recognize and believe that that is where people are going to grow. And so what I want to do next, because we're talking about this, is I want to look at some documents with regards to multiplication of community groups as well as community group leaders. So first, what I want to do is I want to show you how to access this resources. Some of you might know and some of you might not. So you're going to open your web browser. You're going to go to vcnola.com. That's the shortened website for our vintage church, nola.com. When you get to our website, you're going to go to resources. And when you go to resources, you're going to go to Vintage Press. You click on Vintage Press, you go down here, and you're going to see right here under Equip Resources that we have all kinds of stuff. We have Equip Training, which is our training resources from our Equip Nights and our Equip series. Any booklet or book that we've ever created is here under Print and Digital Resources. And then any sort of training we've ever done for community group leaders is here under CG Leader Training. So you're going to click there, and that's going to take you to another page. So this is our community group leader training page. And right here at the very top you're going to find the Community Group Leader Handbook. This is a very important document that you can download as a PDF. You should also have a hard copy that I've given you at some point along the way. And so you can use that. Below that handbook are all the trainings that we've ever done. Some of those have audio and video, some of them don't, but the ones that we're going to look at today are right here: multiplying leaders and multiplying groups. And so these are really important. Again, as I shared earlier, we did this 3 years ago, and so they kind of blend and work together. So the first thing that I want to do is look at multiplying leaders, and so we'll click that. I actually shot a short video on that you can watch there, also audio there, but what we're going to do is click this training outline. And so that is going to take you to this PDF document that you can print out if you would like. And I just want to run through some of these things. So ultimately what we talk about, why Vintage exists, is for gospel multiplication. And this is important because multiplying community group leaders and community groups is involved with gospel multiplication. And so we believe Vintage is committed to the core values of living the gospel, now serving the city, being the church, by multiplying individuals, community groups, and gatherings in New Orleans and beyond. Right there it is, community groups. That is very important. We believe that part of what God has called us to do is multiply, and one of the ways that we do that is by multiplying community groups. And so in order to be able to multiply a community group, we have to be able to multiply community group leaders. And so you can read this document a little bit for yourself, but what I want to show you is basically we have set up several things here that we believe are important in multiplying community group leaders. Number one, assessment. And so we'll talk about that. Number two, recognition. Three, training. And then finally, enlistment. And when we talk about community group leaders or anything related to leadership development, that's the 4 phases that we go through: assessment, recognition, training, and enlistment. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you guys as community group leaders is this: I always want you having an apprentice. If I've met with you yet this year, or I'm going to, one of the questions that you're going to hear me ask is, who is your apprentice? And regardless of whether or not you've just multiplied, just started meeting, or you've been meeting for 5 years now, you need to have an apprentice. I'm not telling you to put parameters around when that multiplication will look like or anything like that, but I am telling you and encouraging you that you need to have someone that you're looking to that you could multiply into. So, when it comes to assessment, you're looking at several things. You're looking at the strengths and weaknesses. Are they a potential apprentice? And so some of this has changed, but basically, are they a Vintage partner? Have they went through the partner process yet? If not, that's one of the first things that needs to happen. Have they been baptized by immersion as a believer? That's important. That's a requirement to be a community group leader. And then these are 4 things that we look for when we talk about leadership. Do they exhibit these things? Godly and Christ-like character, a calling to be a community group leader. Now, when we say calling, we're not talking about a burning bush, but do they have a desire and passion to lead a group and to lead others? Chemistry. They have to be on the same team. Do they have chemistry with the vision, mission, and leadership of Vintage Church? Is Vintage Church their home, and they have chosen to be a part of this church and believe in the vision and mission and the leadership? And then competency. Can they be a community group leader? I would encourage you, of all 4 of those things, those first 3 are the most important, because those first 3 you can't really teach and train. You either have them or you don't. Competency are those things that you can teach and train someone to be better at. And so that's important. You finally would have the potential community group leader fill out the community group leader application, which is on our website. When you go to vcnola.com, you can find that under leadership opportunities. So then they'll fill that out. That application will come to me, and then I will have a meeting with you as a leader, that apprentice, and myself. And after that, we go through this recognition. And this is just simple, where we are recognizing that it looks like this person could be a community group leader. And we are beginning the process of what that looks like. And so that's all that recognition means, is that you've recognized that they have the potential to be a future community group leader. The third thing is training. And this is where, for the most part, this is one-on-one training, where I would encourage you to look at past community group leader training. You can go to that webpage I just showed you. You can walk through other things. Where are they weak at? And you can work through those weaknesses. I'd encourage you to invite the apprentices to our quarterly meetings, as well as to begin getting these monthly e-trainings. And you can just give me their information, and I can get them into the system for that. And then I would encourage you, and this is one of the most important things, I would encourage you to provide them with multiple opportunities to lead the community group with and without you there. And so I would begin with giving them opportunities to facilitate the discussion with you there. So then you can go back and listen. You can go back and talk about how did that person do? What could they have done better? And then as you feel more comfortable with them leading here and there, when the weeks that you can't be there, encourage them to lead on their own and give them some of that experience of what that's going to look like. The last thing is enlistment, and this is right before a community group is about to launch. You're going to enlist them to multiply a community group and lead a community group. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second when we talk about multiplying community groups. So you're going to go back here, and we've already talked about this briefly. I want to go here to multiplying groups. The same thing, there's a brief video, some audio. I'd encourage you to check those out. And here's that training outline. So this is going now from multiplying community group leaders to community groups. And you'll notice how much of this is the same. We've already talked about gospel multiplication, how important that is to multiplying community groups, to the very DNA and vision and mission of who Vintage is. When we talk about multiplying groups, we talk about three things: discover, organize, and launch. And that's what we're going to look at. So when in the discovery phase, you're going to continually emphasize gospel multiplication in your community group. This is important. You need to let your group know that it's our desire to multiply someday, to raise up more leaders and more groups. You'll see here that you have points at which part of this multiplying community groups fits with multiplying community group leaders. And so in this discovery phase, you're going to begin to assess potential future leaders. You're going to assess the growth of your community group. Is there a need, or is it time to multiply? So questions like, is the community group growing? Is the host home becoming too small to hold the community group? Do you have a potential leader in your group to have a new community group? At that point, you're going to then at some point recognize that community group leader apprentice after they've completed the application and sat down with me and you for a meeting. The second phase is organize. And this is where you're going to share some of this information. The titles are old. You're going to share this with me as the equipping pastor about that potential for multiplying. You're going to at some point share with your community group about the apprentice and future multiplication. This isn't, hey, we're going to multiply next week, but just to basically say, hey, we've got an apprentice. When we get to a point and place of multiplication, this is the person that's going to be sent out with others to start a new group. And then you're going to train that leader, that CG leader apprentice. These are all things that we've already talked about in the CG leader training. Part of that, you're going to begin to search for a new host home, as well as plan the day and time the new community group will meet. So in your organized group already, you need to start to ask who might be the person that wants to host this new group, and when will this group meet? Will they be a Thursday night group? Will they be a Tuesday night group? Will they be, a Friday afternoon group? Whatever that group is thinking is going to work. And then you're going to gather that core group for the future community group. And here's what I would encourage you in this. This is one of the most important things. For some people in your group, you're going to need to give them the choice, that they can make a choice. But for most people, I want to encourage you, along with your apprentice, to begin thinking about who's going to be invited to which group. And this is not about favoritism. This is not about, picking the best kickball team. What this is about is being strategic with who needs to be in each group so that both groups can be healthy when multiplication happens. And so I will, as the equipping pastor or your coach, walk with you when this happens. But it's very important that you basically be very strategic with both groups of who needs to be in each group, and not just leave it up to what they want, but to really encourage invitations to happen where you say, I'd like you to be in this group, or I'd like you to be in that group. And we can walk through that together. The last phase is the awesome phase. It's launch. And so this is where you select a date for the multiplication of your community group. You enlist this new community group leader. I'd encourage you, when you do this, to walk through Acts 13, 1 through 3, when Paul and Barnabas are sent out. They're set apart. Hands are laid upon them, and they're prayed over. They're commissioned. And then there's a celebration. And that last time that you get together, I would encourage you to celebrate, have a party, that gospel multiplication is happening. And then when you're launching this new CG, the preference, I believe, should be for the new CG to remain at the current host home and for the older community group to multiply to a new host home to give that new group more stability. And so those are just a few things that I wanted to share with you.